Peace and blessings to the 12 tribes of Israel. So, what I'm going to do today is do a Bible share called Christ Was Hated. Okay, because Christ came to cause division. He came to shake things up. Now, people who go to the Christian church, they're accustomed to hearing a message which is sweetie, 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 all one-sided, goody, goody, goody. But they don't hear the verses in the Bible, or at least not explained to them properly, where God says he hates. I remember back in the day, they used to say in the church that I used to attend that God hates the sin. He doesn't hate the person, but he hates the sin, right? And all that stuff is just ridiculous. That's foolishness, right? Because God doesn't just hate the sin. He hates the sinner too, right? He said only a remnant of Israel shall be saved. So what happens to the other Israelites that are not going to be saved? He doesn't like them because of their sin, right? So Christ is not just the goody Christ. I mean, Christ is good. Don't get me wrong. Christ is good. But if you do wrong, you will get punished, right? If you do wrong, you will get punished. So he's not just a one-sided God who just wants to give you presents and gifts and just wants to love you even though you're wicked. Even though you fornicate or you rob other people, you extort other people by paying them extremely low wages, or you're extorting your ex via alimony or child support because you have a rich ex. He's paying you millions every year in alimony and child support. That's extortion, right? Which you haven't even worked for, right? Which is not really your money. That's a form of extortion. Also other things, people that go around gossiping about other people without proof, right? All that stuff causes division, unnecessary division between the brothers and sisters. And that's ungodly. That's unrighteous. We shouldn't do that kind of thing, right? So God was hated because he said the things that were hard, the things that people didn't like hearing. People like the Pharisees and the scribes and the chief priests, they didn't really like hearing what Christ had to say because they saw him as being an enemy, as being competition, as being someone who wanted to change things and now wanted to bring in the new covenant of which they didn't like, right? Because we're very high-minded, and therefore anybody else bringing in any kind of different, who proclaims to be the Son of Man, which is the second to God himself, they didn't like that, right? They didn't like that. It was too much of a challenge, right? So Christ was hated. So let's go to Philippians 2, and we're going to read from 6 to 12. Okay, so we're reading Philippians 2, and we're going to read from 6 to 12. Who, being the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant. So Christ came down and took on the form of a servant. So he had godlike powers. He had powers equal to God himself, right? He was the second to God. But he took upon himself to come down in the form of a servant and was made in the likeness of men. So he was a son of man. He didn't come down as a son of God. He came down as a son of man. So he was a man, whereby a man placed his seed in a woman and she gave birth to a boy baby called Christ. So he came in the likeness of men, and being found in the fashion of a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Wherefore God also hath highly exalted him, and given him a name which is above every name. In that at the name of Jesus every knee shall bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth, and that every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, working out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Right? So the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, and of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth. So Christ is a king of which everyone has to bow to him, and that every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, is the glory of God the Father. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence, this is Paul talking here only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. So Paul is advising us, or commanding us, I should say, to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, i.e. check yourself. Right, check to see if Christ were to return today, will you make it into the kingdom? How will you make it into the kingdom? Why would you make it? Why would Christ choose you to be in the kingdom? Right, so that's working out your salvation. It doesn't mean that you're already saved. No, that's not what it means. It means work out your own salvation. Work out the works that you're doing, the faith that you have, the obedience that you have. Work that out. Right? Work that out. So let's go to Luke 11, and we're going to read from 37 to 54. So we're reading Luke 11, 37 to 54. And he spake, a certain Pharisee besought him to dine with him, and he went in and sat down to meat. And when the Pharisee saw it, he marveled that he had not first washed before dinner. And the Lord said unto him, Now do ye Pharisees make clean the outside of a cup of the platter, but your inward part is full of ravening and wickedness. Ye fools, do not he that made that which is without make that which is within also, but rather give alms of such things as ye have, and behold, all things are clean unto you. But woe unto you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and pass over judgment the love of God. These ought you have done, and not to leave the other undone. So Christ is checking the Pharisees, right? They didn't like that. Woe unto you, Pharisees, for you love the uppermost seats in the synagogues and greetings in the market. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. They were hypocrites because they were proclaiming to do the law of Moses when they weren't. But ye are as graves which appear not, and the men that walk over them are not aware of them. So Christ is cussing them out, right? And he's saying, you're just like dead men, right? You're spiritually dead. Then answered one of the lawyers and said unto him, Master, thus saying thou reproachest us also. And he said, Woe unto you also, ye lawyers, for ye laden men with burdens, grievous to be borne, and ye yourselves touch not the burdens of one of your fingers. Woe unto you. So he's cursing out the lawyers too. For ye build the scriptures of the prophets, and your fathers kill them. Truly ye bear witness that ye allow the deeds of your fathers, for they indeed kill them, and ye build their sepulchres, the sepulchres. Therefore also said that the wisdom of God, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they shall slay and persecute, that the blood of all the prophets which are shed from the foundation of the world may be required of this generation, from the blood of Abel unto the blood of Zacchaeus, which perished between the altar and the temple. Verily I say unto you, it shall be required of this generation. Woe unto you, lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge. Ye entered not in yourselves, them that were entering ye hindered. But as he said these things unto them, the scribes and the Pharisees began to urge him vehemently, and to provoke him to speak of many things, laying wait for him and seeking to catch something out of his mouth that they might accuse him. So they were following him around, and they were trying to trip him up. And Christ got wind of it, and therefore he is checking them, right? So let's go to Luke 12. I'm going to read from 1 to 4. And in the meantime, when there were gathered together an innumerable multitude of people, insomuch that they trode one upon another, he began to say unto his disciples, First of all, beware ye of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. 3. Therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the car in the air, and that which ye have spoken in the air in closets shall be proclaimed among the housetops. And I say unto you, my friends, be not afraid of them that kill the body, after that have no more that they can do. Right? So let's read it again. In the meantime, when they were gathered together in an innumerable multitude of people, insomuch that they trode one upon another, he began to say unto his disciples, first of all, beware ye of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. So he's saying, be aware of the Pharisees, which are a bunch of hypocrites. For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Therefore whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light. That which ye have spoken in the air in the closets shall be proclaimed on the roof, on the housetops. And I say unto you, my friend, be not afraid of them that kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do. Right? They can kill your body, but they can't kill your spirit. Let's go to John 7, and we're going to read from 1 to 20. Right, so we read in John 7, and we're going to read from 1 to 21. We might skip bits, actually. So we're basically reading about Christ being hated. And Christ came to cause division. A lot of the scribes and the Pharisees, they didn't like him, chief priests. So we're just going through a few scriptures to edify. Okay? Right, so we're reading John 7, 1 to 25. And after these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, and for he would not walk in Jewry, because the Jews sought to kill him. So the Jews didn't like him, and they sought to kill him. Right, in Galilee. So after these things, Jesus walked in Galilee. So he walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Jewry. So it's in Jewry, because the Jews sought to kill him. Now the Jews' feast at Tabernacles was at hand. His brethren therefore said unto him, depart thence, go into Judea, that thy disciples also may see the works that thou doest. For there is no man that doeth anything in secret, and he himself seeketh to be known openly. If thou do these things, show thyself to the world. For neither did his brethren believe in him. And Jesus said unto them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. Your time is always, ready. The world cannot hate me, but me it hated. The world cannot hate you, So the world cannot hate you, but me it hated, because I testify of it that the works thereof are evil. So Christ was saying to people that what you're doing is evil. So he represented righteousness to their wickedness, and that's what they didn't like. Okay, so when you actually compare it with the churches today, they don't really speak on sin. Why? Because if they speak on sin, the church will be empty, and that's what they don't want. Let's read 7 again. The world cannot hate you, but me it hated. So the world hated him, the world of Israel, right? Because Christ only came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But I testify of it, that the works thereof are evil. Right? Go ye up unto this feast, I go not up yet unto this feast, for my time is not yet full come. When he had said these things unto them, he abode still in Galilee. But when his brethren were gone up, then went he also up unto the feast, not openly, but as it were in secret. Then the Jews sought him at the feast and said, where is he? So they were trying to trace him to kill him. And there was much murmuring among the people concerning him, for some said he is a good man, others said nay, but he deceived the people. So they were saying, he's a good man, and some were saying, he deceives the people. Nah, he ain't that good. 13. Howbeit no man spoke openly of him for fear of the Jews. Now among the midst of the feast Jesus went up into the temple and taught, and the Jews marveled, saying, how knoweth this man letters, having never learnt? 16. Jesus answered them and said, my doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. So he's saying it's God's doctrine. If any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine, whether it be of God, or whether I speak of myself. He that speaketh of himself seeketh his own glory, but he that seeketh his glory that sent him, the same is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. Did not Moses give you the law, and yet none of you keepeth the law? Why go ye about to kill me? So these people they didn't like this new covenant thing. They didn't like it. They wanted to stay under the law, and they weren't really following the law to the letter. They weren't following all of it, right? They were just pretending to follow it, but they liked it nevertheless, the pretense of it. The people answered and said, Thou hast a devil. Who goeth about to kill thee? Jesus answered and said unto them, I have done one work, and ye all marvel, right? All right, so let's leave that one there. So now let's go to... So we're going to Matthew 26, and we're reading from 14 to 15. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests and said unto them, What will ye give me, and I will deliver him unto you? And they convenated with him for 30 pieces of silver. So Judas got paid to deceive Christ, right? So he got paid to deceive Christ. So let's go all the way down to 48 to 66. Now that he betrayed him, gave them a sign, saying, Whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he, hold me fast. And forthwith the name came to Jesus, and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. And Jesus said unto him, Friend, wherefore art thou come? Then came they, and laid hands on Jesus, and took him. And behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand, and drew his sword, and struck a servant of the high priest, and smote off his ear. Right, and so they basically cut off a bit of his ear. 52. Then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be? So Christ is saying the scriptures need to be fulfilled. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to humble myself. In that same hour said Jesus to the multitudes, Are ye come out as against a thief with swords and staves for to take me? I sat daily with you teaching in the temple, and you laid no hand on me. But all this was done that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples forsook him and fled. And they that had laid hold on Jesus led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. So all the big boys that hated Christ were assembled. But Peter followed him afar off unto the high priest's palace, and went in and sat with the servants to see the end. Now the chief priests and the elders and all the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet found they none. And at last came 2 false witnesses, and said, This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God, and to build it in 3 days. And the high priest arose and said unto him, Answer it thou nothing. What is it that which these witnesses against thee? But Jesus held his peace. And the high priest answered and said unto him, I adjure thee by the living God, that thou tell us whether thou be the Christ, the Son of God. Jesus said unto him, Thou hast said, nevertheless I say unto you, hereafter shall ye see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power, and coming in the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest rent his clothes, saying, He had spoken blasphemy. What further need have we of witnesses? Behold, now ye have heard his blasphemy. What think ye? They answered and said, He is guilty of sin. Okay, so they were clutching he was guilty of death, right? So they were clutching at straws, basically. There was nothing to convict him of. They just hated him. And whatever he said, they were just getting angrier and angrier. And they just wanted to put him to death. That's all. They just didn't like him, right? So Christ was hated to that point that he wasn't really well loved, right? So we read in Matthew 27, and we're going to read from 1 to 15. So we're just going to continue more of this story about his crucifixion, leading up to his crucifixion. When the morning was come, all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. And when they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented himself, and brought again 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, I have sinned in that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, What is that to us? See thou to that. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. Right. So Judas got a touch of remorse. I suppose it's guilt. And so he basically gave them back the money, and he chucked the money and he topped himself. 6. And the chief priest took the silver in pieces and said, It is not lawful for it to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. And they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. Wherefore the field was called the fields of blood unto this day. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy, meaning Jeremiah, the prophet, saying, And they took the 30 pieces of silver and price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value, and gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord appointed me. And Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, Art thou the King of the Jews? And Jesus said unto him, Thou sayest. And when he was accursed of the chief priests, and when he was accursed of the chief priests and the elders, he answered nothing. Then said Pilate unto him, Hearest thou not how many things they witness against thee? And he answered him to never a word, insomuch that the governor marveled greatly. Now at that feast the governor was wont to release unto the people a prisoner whom they would. Okay, right. So they took him to Pontius Pilate, where he was judged and ultimately crucified, where he was kept and ultimately whipped, tortured, and crucified, right? So let's read on from 35 to 53. So we read in Matthew 27, 35 to 53. And they crucified him and parted his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophets, right? So spoken by the prophets means, the prophets of old. They was spoken by the prophet. Okay, let's read that bit again. And they crucified him and parted his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet. It means Christ. They parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots. And sitting down, they watched him there, and set up over his head his accusation written, This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Then were there two thieves crucified with him, one on the right hand and another on the left. And they that passed by reviled him, wagging their heads, and saying, Thou that destroyest the temple and build it in 3 days, save thyself, if thou be the Son of God. Come down from the cross. Likewise also the chief priests, mocking him with the scribes and the Pharisees, saying, He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and he will believe him. And we will believe him. He trusted in God. Let him deliver him now, if he will have him. For he said, I am the Son of God. The thieves also which were crucified with him cast the same in his teeth. Now from the 2nd hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cries with a loud voice, saying, Ali, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That it is said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Some of them that stood there, when they heard that, said, This man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on a reed and gave him to drink. The rest said, Let us see whether Elias will come to save him. Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent, and the graves were open, and many bodies of the saints which slept rose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. Right? So this is on his resurrection, right? So The reason why I read all of that is to say that Christ was hated, and he was hated to the point where he was crucified. So Christ is not just a one-sided Christ where he just came to make you feel good. He's just a feel-good doctor. No, Christ came to bring division. He came to bring something that most people didn't like hearing, right? And therefore, when you are calling yourself a pastor, you're giving yourself flattering titles like you're a bishop, pastor, or whatever you call yourself, apostle, which is crazy. The Bible says we are all brethren. He said the first shall become last and shall serve them all. So there's no such thing as a rank system in this kingdom. We are all brethren, right? Being a bishop and a deacon is an office that you do, right? It's the work that you do, right? But it's not something where you should use it as a badge of honor to say, I am the bishop, I am the chief apostle, all that stuff is pride, right? So Christ came, and he came even though he had powers equivalent to God himself, right? Because he's second to God. He came as a mere man. So he came in all humility, right? He came in all humility to preach the word of God, right? And he was crucified, he was hated, and he was antagonized, and he was ultimately tortured, and he was hung on a tree. So that's how much hatred that they had for Christ, right? Brothers and sisters, I hope you were edified. Shalom.